Welcome to this video on Tropical Storm Carlos. You can see Carlos is struggling a little bit with some northerly winds here right now. It's not as well organized as I'd like to be, or it's not nearly as well organized as it was last night. You can see, though even though a recent microwave overpassage show some evidence of an eye wall forming, but since then I would not be surprised if the eye wall opened a little bit, even though we have no microwave data to confirm. Because the structure isn't the greatest right now. It appears to be suffering from around 15 knots of northerly to northeasterly shear. This was somewhat expected along the ride, even though I do think this rapid intensification phase is still a little bit prolonged, even though I do think this storm does look poised to intensify tonight. I do not expect much strengthening, if any strengthening today, and I even think weakening over the next few hours is more likely than strengthening. Eventually, this year is forecasted to subside, as I mentioned in previous videos, and by that point, assuming it has an inner core, as I've ranted on several times, the system should still be able to intensify into at least a solid hurricane, possibly into a minimal major hurricane, before it enters cool waters in 4 to 6 days from now. But I will say the models aren't too aggressive. Let's take a look at the HWRF and JFDI, I'll show you why. Here's the HWRF. HWRF, let's talk about track a little bit. The HWRF models, I'm trying it back to the east, I'll get to that a little later. But the HWRF has this passing very close to Colleen and Mike Choshan, and eventually, as you can see right here, has it passing very close to Jalisco, and eventually entering the Gulf of California as a very weak system. Likely disrupted due to the mid-level circulation being forced ashore along the Mexican coast, and the low-level circulation being spared out. This rapid dissipation is sort of similar, shown by the HWRF. Sort of similar with the Hurricane Andre in 2009, Hurricane Beatrice in 2011, and Hurricane Run 2012, as the storms in this part of the world tend to do that. It's also worth noting that the models aren't particularly aggressive, neither the HWRF or the JFDL, which, speaking of the JFDL, I'm not showing here, but it's a lot further east and later takes the remnants of the storm into the Gulf of Mexico briefly, before making a second landfall in Texas as a post-tropical remnant low. Probably something most similar to the Cosmo Allison of 1989, but I highly doubt that same exact scenario will repeat itself. But interestingly enough, that the easterly weft shows a bit of upwelling like it did with Hurricane Blanca and an overdid with Blanca. The easterly weft shows a bit of upwelling. While I do expect some upwelling to occur here due to the fact that the storm is moving very, very slowly, most of the deep convection right now is on the south side of the system. And the system isn't particularly strong, so I don't expect any short-term upwelling, though in the long, and the oceanic heat content values are relatively high. In the long term, like, in a day or two, if the system continues to move very slowly, maybe we can see some upwelling. And it may slow intensification a little bit, but I do think the HWF is overdoing this just a little bit, because I doubt 18 sea waters will emerge, and 25 sea waters will emerge off the Mexican coast. I will say that it's also worth pointing out how warm the Gulf of California is, and the system can stay, it's probably a good map to illustrate, the system can stay intact. I do think in the Gulf of California, I do think we could see some system holding together a little bit longer than what the ANC forecast right now. As the ANC forecast weakening after they, even though the GFS and European model shows the storm peaking in around 4 days, I think possibly a little longer. But that's also, and the system may even be able to make it to Baja as a formidable hurricane, just because of the fact that 28 sea waters near La Paz. And if a hurricane, if the system takes like the perfect angle approach, I definitely think a Catchway 1, Catchway 2, maybe even Catchway Prime. Probably let's say Catchway 1, Catchway 2 hurricanes are a distinct possibility. Because in the Gulf of California, there's usually some wind shear that inhibits significant intensification. There's also another. Let's look at the GFDL one. So the also Simulop Welling, which also it's also worth taking a note here that what was I gonna say? I forgot now. Oh yeah, that the system is studying a negative suppressed phase of the convective Cooper wave that could induce some drier air. In addition to the fact that the system will already be moving into some drier environments anyway in a few days from now. So I think the negative phase of the convective Cooper wave can only make it worse. Because the air is going to be getting a little drier, the relative humidity index is supposed to fall according to the ship's model, and some may be inheriting dry air from the continent. However, I will note that the European GFS are both pretty aggressive on saying a formidable hurricane. With the European, the low red is showing 974 millibar hurricane, which would be category 2 strength, possibly category 3 because it's a low res. So the European doesn't have, in this resolution, does not have the ability to detect pressures. I mean, obviously the full res non-public access version of it does. I don't know which it shows, but definitely going to be interesting to watch. I will say the new scenario that's also popping up, both the GFS and the European models, rather than landfall in Cabo San Lucas, they bring us up, they have this glazing bar moving northward into the Gulf of California, making landfall on Sonora as a weaker system, likely to be disrupted by land interaction with both Jalisco and Baja California. So it's another scenario that I don't think can be ruled out. The GFS shows something sort of similar, has a blazing, San Jose del Cabo, La Paz area, like that sparsely populated area between San Jose del Cabo and La Paz, has a glazing that area as like a mid-grade tropical storm before entering the Gulf of California. The remnants providing some rain to Texas and New Mexico and Arizona. Anyhow, that'll wrap up this video. Bye. Bye.